Hey there, friends. This morning I'm coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio. We're here for GunCon. A bunch of really cool people are out here this week. It's going to be a good time. We're actually heading to the range today, but I felt the need to put this video out because there's something super important, but far more disappointing that came out this morning. We've been talking, of course, about the Hearing Protection Act and more specifically suppressors, short barrel rifle, short barrel shotguns being taken out of the NFA quagmire, if you will, and completely eliminated and making it to the point where you purchase them like a normal firearm, including suppressors, unfortunately, even though it's not a firearm. But if you were to go to a gun shop and buy something, you fill out your background check and boom, they give you approval, you walk out with it. That's what, there goes a rabbit. A rabbit just ran through these houses. So that's what we were looking for. And if you notice, there wasn't a whole lot of, other than on our end and your end, the politicians, other than a couple of Pro 2A guys, weren't real vocal about it. You kind of wondered why. You wondered if the fix was already in. And I know we tend to be very pessimistic in the Second Amendment community for good reason, because stuff like this happens and because people pretend to be Second Amendment supporters and are not. Well, if you guys understand, and I'll tell you at a super high level, the Senate parliamentarian is a person who was appointed in 2012 by Barack Obama. Actually, Harry Reid, if you remember that clown, the one that got punched in the face with the black eyes. Harry Reid's one of the most horrible human beings on the face of this earth. When he was Senate leader, he's the one who appointed this parliamentarian who's in there right now. So yeah, not appointed necessarily by Barack Obama, but during the Barack Obama administration, more specifically by Harry Reid. Harry Reid is the one who chose her. She is partisan. She's not supposed to be partisan. This is a job that's supposed to be nonpartisan. We know everything in the confines of Washington, D.C. is partisan. Doesn't matter. I don't care who you are. You can play whatever game you want. You can make whatever claims you want. You have a side, right? She's shown her side. We have proven, you guys have proven, all the firearms Second Amendment advocacy groups, everyone out there has proven that what? The Hearing Protection Act, let me describe it like this. Its actual name, the tax stamp, which implies money, and as I stated in my video the other day, there's literally a dollar sign on a tax stamp with the numbers 200 after it. That implies that this is finance related, right? Well, the parliamentarian is supposed to decide if something is admissible during the reconciliation process, which is what we're talking about now. That means money. If it can be associated with money, either adding money to the budget or taking money from the budget, spending or not spending, that determines whether or not it can be included in the reconciliation process and pass the Senate with a simple majority. It's very important to understand this whole process is so that the vote can get through to pull the Hearing Protection Act stuff and the Short Act stuff out of the NFA with a simple majority, because they don't have 61 votes in the Senate in order to pass it. If they had it, it really wouldn't matter right now because it wouldn't have to be included in the reconciliation process. We need it to go through the reconciliation process dealing with money because we don't have 61 votes in the Senate to pass this thing. She has determined that this is not finance related. This is not a finance issue. Stupid, I know, because we all know it is. She knows it is. Problem we probably have right now is obviously she is a partisan person appointed by Democrats and some of the most loathsome Democrats out there. But the other issue is, I believe, and this is my opinion only, if I'm wrong, somebody can tell me where I'm wrong, but it seems that the Senate Republicans, who probably don't support pulling this out of the NFA, I'm talking about suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, they probably don't support that. But they knew, or they know now, that the Senate parliamentarian was going to dismiss this as being part of the reconciliation bill, so they hid behind that. In other words, they still get to have the guise that, the look that, the perception that they're pro-Second Amendment and that they would have supported it. Like they can say, oh man, if the Senate parliamentarian wouldn't have done this, we would have passed the bill. Knowing all along they wouldn't have voted for it, but they don't have to vote because the parliamentarian is doing their dirty work for them. This is the dirty, swampy crap that happens in DC. Now, your question is probably the same as what mine was. Can something be done about it? Well, she can be fired. She can be overruled. She does not have final say. What her decision is not binding, but it sets precedent as to what happens next. And this is where we fall into that trap. Republicans aren't willing to do the things to cross the line, like when filibuster was all brought into play and all that. Before, Republicans were like, oh, we're not going to stoop to that level, but Democrats didn't have a problem doing that. Problem is, if, again, the parliamentarian's decision is not binding, Thune, the Senate Majority Leader Thune, or even J.D. Vance being the president of the Senate, they could all overrule her and still allow this to be voted on in the reconciliation bill. You see what I'm saying? She doesn't have final say. However, the Republicans are going to be cowards in this case and go, we don't want to open up that can of worms because if we do this now, they're just going to do this every single year and allow things that are not budget related to be pushed into the reconciliation bill. That's right thinking, but at the same time, this is a slam dunk. In other words, if you want to put something that's literally not budget related in the reconciliation bill and you can prove that, well, in some cases and in most cases, I'd like to think, common sense is going to prevail. And I know that's crazy to say common sense and be talking about politicians at the same time. But knowing it could be abused for non-budgetary reasons is what I'm talking about. In this case, it's a slam dunk to prove that. The very fact that it's called a tax stamp means it is associated with money. So I think this is one of those situations where the Republicans could overrule her and not be setting a new precedent because they could say she stepped out of line. She's wrong. It's not her opinion. She's incorrect. This is a money-related issue and should be in reconciliation. I feel like the Republicans are bending over and allowing this to happen because they never wanted it to happen before and they probably knew that the parliamentarian was going to shoot this down. What can we do? I don't know. At this point, John Thune's office, even J.D. Vance's office, but certainly call the Senate and tell them this needs to happen. I think we should risk setting precedent because precedent gets set all the time. And in this case, like I said, I think we have something to back it up. The fact that this is a known money issue. Fire the parliamentarian. I think you have grounds to. The problem is anyone willing to do that on the Republican side? Or are they just going to walk in lockstep with everybody else now? Now, we'll say this. Thune won't do it. I know Thune won't do it. I'll go on record saying Thune's not going to override that and he's not going to fire her. J.D. Vance could. Let's remember, J.D. Vance has 3.5 years to go and he's going to want to run for president, right? This could be a power move by Vance if he gets approval from Donald Trump, which I believe he would, to do this. Probably go to Donald Trump and say, hey, I want to override her. Is this something you'll back me up on? And if Trump would agree to do that, Vance could override her, and I think it would be a power play for Vance to show he stepped in when he needed to. He would have the vote of the Second Amendment community heading into the 2028 election. If he doesn't, I think it hurts him in 2028. And let's be really honest here. If this goes through like it is with the Senate parliamentarian dismissing this, and this does not happen the way we all have been talking about it over the last several weeks, I think the Second Amendment community is going to completely abandon voting, certainly the Republican Party. It will be an absolute landslide for the Republicans to lose everything in midterms in a couple of years. Everything. They don't have time to recover from this. If they don't stand firm and make something happen like this and pass this, the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act in this reconciliation bill, they have no chance, zero chance of getting Second Amendment voters out in 1.5 years for midterms. They will lose everything. Any ground they feel like they've gained is gone. And now the reconciliation process will be in the favor of the Democrats. And you don't think they will fire whoever needs to be fired in the parliamentarian? You don't think they're going to override and do whatever they have to do to get their stuff pushed through? This is a pivotal time. This may seem like it's just a gun issue, but this is going to have ripple effects that are going to affect a lot of stuff going forward between midterms and the next presidential election. And you're going to lose all the support the Second Amendment community has given you up to this point. And I think that's a huge risk they're taking.